It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So folks, we're on a journey through life. We're living every day. We're looking for expectations in our life. It's a journey. It really is a journey, isn't it? Now, here's the question. The journey to discover the meaning of life. And that's an interesting statement, isn't it? The journey to discover the meaning of life. Well, we have a young man who wrote a book called The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life, Edward Bednarz III, doctor, if you will. And he wrote a book which is extremely, extremely fascinating. As you know, I have many people who come on the show write books, and believe me, the people who come on, the books are fantastic. But this book here, The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life. So welcome on the show, Eddie.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. My wife read the book, as you know, and Janine and everything, and I went through the book. I'm not going to say too much about the book. What's the details of the book. But let me go back in history a little bit, okay? I always wonder sometimes what inspires someone to write a book, okay? Right. And this is it's an easy read book, but you get involved with it. Okay? So talk a little bit about you. Who are you?
I'm from Hazleton originally, so local guy. I wrote the first part of the book 15 years ago.
Okay, but so let me go back to your education. Okay, what happened? So because I want to build a case here, so people can see what drove you to write a book. Okay.
Sure.
How old are you?
35.
Okay.
35 years old.
2 years older than me, but that's okay.
Yeah. I went to Bishop Hayfie High School right here in Hazleton. Graduated in '97. My Catholic upbringing was definitely a huge influence in my life. Family has been extremely important in my life. All influences that went into how I developed the book.
When you went to college, what was your major?
Mechanical engineering.
Okay, so then from there you went into you worked in the government, right?
Yes.
And without being specific, I know you worked on private projects. What specifically were you involved in doing?
Yeah, I worked down at Aberdeen Test Center in Maryland for 8 years, and we did testing of vehicles. And my main job was to design outriggers for vehicles in order to do a safe lane change maneuver. So my primary job was to keep the driver safe, and it was a very fulfilling job and very enjoyable.
Then you ended up at Tobyhanna, right?
And then I transferred to Tobyhanna. I was there for 3.5 years.
Okay.
And along the way at Tobyhanna, I actually got a patent on a design for a safety brace for an antenna piece of equipment, and that was another great job to work on. Mm-hmm. And after Tobyhanna, I actually started teaching full-time at Wilkes, where I got my undergraduate. So basically came full circle. Was a student at Wilkes from '97 to 2001, and now
I'm
I'm
sorry to hear about that. It should have been Kings, but that's okay. I'm only kidding, folks.
Rival, crosstown rival. But and now I'm back.
Our president, Father Ryan, went to Wilkes College, who is the president of King's College. So the interesting thing is, the reason I like people to know the writer's background is, sure. What then, in dealing with different people, okay, you have, tell me a little bit about your personal life. You have a son, of course, and he's Edward Bednarz, the 65th, I think, as I always say to him. Yeah. But then you're going to be getting married, okay? Yes. So you dealt with a lot of people, okay? You had different aspects in your life, all right? Going back to, you said you thought about writing the book. What inspired you to write this book, The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life? It's a powerful title, because we're all in this journey together,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in the book. It involves faith and relationships, and it's a love story, but there's how to overcome conflicts in your life. So it's a lot of my inspiration for my personal life went into it. It's a fiction book, but definitely everything I've gone through in my life has kind of gone through that book as well.
So what inspired you to start writing the book? Did you know what the title was going to be of the book?
No, I didn't. I first started writing the book 15 years ago for fun. I was towards the end of college.
But why did you decide to write the book?
Just, I had this inspiration. I was in love. I was getting ready to get married, and I just wanted to tell a story. And I wrote the first chapter just called The Journey. And I really based the first chapter on that concept, that life is a journey, not a destination. You know, a lot of times in life we say we're not going to be happy until we achieve this or until we achieve a goal, but we're going to miss out on a lot that happens in the meantime.
That, you know, you're so right. There's some people live just for a destination, okay, where they, you know, I can't wait till I retire. I can't wait till I have this. And meanwhile, they're missing all the things in life, which we will address, which I think is interesting. So your inspiration was that you felt that you wanted to put something in writing to, did you ever think this was the beginning of a book, or was it just like a journal that you wanted to start?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm not a trained writer. I'm trained in math and engineering, but it was just something I did for fun. Like I said, I would be out in nature and just have my pen and paper and just start writing, and just these characters would just start coming to me. So I would just write down the dialogue between them and what they were thinking at the time, and it was just something creative that I could do.
So your substance, okay, coming up from a great family, you know, you said about your faith, and whether it's a Protestant faith, a Jewish faith, or a Catholic faith, how important in your life is your faith to you, Ed?
Oh, absolutely. I wear my cross, and you know, this is my strength. Yeah. You know, my faith is my strength and allows me to get through tough times, because everyone goes through difficulties, and we can't have the human experience without going through trials and tribulations. So the main goal of this book is what is our purpose here, and what's the meaning of life? And I don't think you could begin to answer that question without addressing a higher power. Like you said, regardless of what denomination, Christianity you are, or Muslim, or Jewish, everyone believes in there's a higher power out there helping to guide us.
So with that mixture of having, you know, your experiences in life, your faith that you have, a family that is all supportive, you began to write a book. Now, so when did you discover, after you were writing, that you said, hey, I think I should turn this into a book?
So I actually wrote the first 3 chapters of the book 14 years ago, and it was a trilogy. I thought it was just a great story. I put it down. And then 2 years ago, I met my current fiancée, Heather, and just the process of falling in love and how our relationship was going, it really inspired me to just continue writing. So I didn't know if I should start a whole new story or continue on the way this story was going, and I kind of came up with a way to tie the 2 parts of the book together. Even though they were written at 2 distinct parts of my life, I think there's a definite continuity from the beginning through the end of it. So, and then it was until I started getting into the latter chapters, I said, I think I have enough substance to really make this a great book. And at that point, that's when I started searching for different publishers and a way to really get my message across.
Well, so when you were writing the book, okay, and this person takes a journey, okay, the person going through the journey.
Yes.
As they're going through the journey, there's interesting things. When we come back after the break, folks, I'm talking to Dr. Edward Bednarz, who wrote the book, The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life. How do you get the book? Very simple. Sammy put it up on the screen. TheJourney.tape, T-A-T-E, author.com. I highly recommend you get the book, or Amazon.com. We come back, we'll talk a little bit more. What about the meaning of life? Remember a guy by the name of George Bernard Shaw? I'm sure you do. We're going to give you a quiz. What famous play did he write? And what did he mean by that play? And how does that relate to this book, The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life? Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, folks. You're watching the Sam Lesante Show. Remember, 24/7, you can watch all of our shows that we produce on ssptv.com. My email is sam@ssptv.com. Talking to author Dr. Edward Bednarz III, who wrote the book, The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life. We're talking about a journey, folks, not a destination where we're going to. And he said, the first 3 chapters, the journey begins, the journey continues, our journey never ends. Okay, now those were the first 3 chapters that you wrote before you met your girlfriend, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I mentioned about George Bernard Shaw, and I will address that, but the point is, so when you start writing The Journey Begins, you start with a person in Massachusetts, right?
Yes.
Okay, and this person, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin the you know,
Sure.
It's a fascinating book, it really is. It's a really interesting story, and it's a comfortable story, okay? And as you read the book, you start thinking about your own journey in life, etc. So, who are some of the things that inspired you to? Without, I know that there's characters in here, even though it's fiction, but there are some characters that were real. Okay, what were some of the highlights that all of a sudden you started this person? What were some of the highlights? Some of the characters.
Yeah, I think one of the main characters, like you mentioned, Andy Andrews, he was the one that really is just searching. Why am I here? What does God have for me? What am I? He's just a struggling person, and he tries to go on this cross-country adventure, and he's really searching for his meaning. And he meets interesting characters along the way. And like you said, I don't want to give too much away either, but a lot of, maybe
Give me one key character, just to tease the audience a little bit, okay, as to what he met and what he learned for a person. Okay, just give me one of them.
Yeah, I think one of the characters he meets along the way is an older gentleman named Jack, and Jack's been through a lot in his life, and Jack really helps put things in perspective for Andy. And I guess I could equate that to just some people I've met along my journey too, just some older people that have a lot of wisdom and just what they've seen in their life, and they could just look at life with a certain sense of calmness and not panic, because they know I could get through this. If God brought me to it, He'll get me through it. And that's really one of the main things that I tried to get across through that message.
And I would think faith has a strong point in this.
Oh,
okay?
absolutely.
I mean, you have to have that faith, okay?
Yeah.
Some people, okay. So when this person meets different people and they begin to share a story and he begins to get involved with that person, he begins to learn things from that person on his journey, okay?
Right.
And would you say that as the person is dealing with these various people, he is beginning to gain more appreciativeness of his life and his journey?
Absolutely. And it's, again, it's really just the quest we're on, and why are we here? Just how everyone's going to deal with adversity. How do we overcome it? How do we get through it? How do we learn from it? You were mentioning a lot of the inspiration came from my personal life, and that's true. 2-3 years ago, I was at a job I didn't really like too much. I was struggling. I didn't have a relationship. I was feeling very lonely. I was at a pretty bad place in my life, but that really made me stronger to really appreciate what God had in store for me later on. Now I'm at my dream job. I'm engaged. I'm in love with Heather, and it's just there's light at the end of the tunnel.
So when you went through that time where when we all go through this is where I think some people fail to understand that if they have a faith,
Yes.
whether if it's a Catholic, Protestant, or Jewish, okay, there is where that faith is there holding you up, okay,
Right.
and you maintain your faith. You didn't give up. Okay,
Absolutely.
you were not too good to go to church. You were not too good to do what you had to do. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, and even myself too, you even start questioning, like, God, why are you putting me through this?
Yes.
And I think that's natural, and I don't think that makes you a bad person to question. But in the end, you just keep going to church, keep, have your family as a support system, your friends, and then you will get through it.
When someone reads this book, okay, and they're going through this, and what happens is when you read a book, sometimes you'll read a character and it'll say, oh, that's my aunt so-and-so, or that's my uncle, or that's the guy I met, or this is the person here. Sometimes you begin to wonder why they did what they did, okay, until it was after the fact. Oh, now I knew why this person did this, okay. That seems to be prevalent in this book.
I think there's a lot of interesting characters in the book, and I think there's a lot of diverse characters.
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. People can relate to a lot of the characters in many ways. They could say, I see myself a lot in this main character, or I see my spouse or my mom. And I really hope that that's what people get out of it, that the journey to discover the meaning of life. I really wish that whoever reads the book and they buy it, they could put their name at the top. It's really their journey.
Yeah, and when you say here, how do we travel through life, okay? how are we to make decisions that lead to happiness, all right? What is our purpose here? Okay, maybe these questions are unanswerable, or maybe they have a different answer for each person, and this is what the book is. I mentioned about George Bernard Shaw because he wrote My Fair Lady. When he had his, from what I read, when he had his grand opening, okay, everyone was there and they saw the play, and he had a tremendous response after they were gathering around and who was going up talking with him, and this lady goes running through pushing everyone inside, and she says to Mr. Shaw, she says, "Mr. Shaw, I know exactly what you meant when you wrote this play." And he said, "What was it, ma'am?" And she proceeded to tell him exactly what he meant when he wrote that play. And he said to her, "If that's what you got out of that play, that's what I meant."
Right.
And this is the fact what the book is, okay? Because as you read the book and as you go through this, okay, when I say it's interesting reading, because it makes you meditate, it makes you think, you know, creativity, the juices start flowing and saying, you know, how do I become a better person, and how do I get rid of this destination nonsense? When I get rich, I'm going to get married. When I have this, I'm going to do this. When I have this, I'm retiring. I can't wait to, and people do not appreciate all that stuff. I think the book tells us that, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I've had a lot of great conversations with people that have read the book, strangers that have read the book, and said, "This has really inspired me," and it's so fulfilling for me to hear great stories, that this has gotten me through a hard part of my life, and I'm just speechless that my book has had that effect on people.
The book is The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life, Dr. Edward Bednarz. You can get the book at journey.tate, T-A-T-E. It's up on the screen, author.com. Now, here's the question, folks. After an author writes a book, and after they're sitting down writing all this stuff and these things are coming through, does it change their life anyway? Sometimes a person writes a book, they get so depressed they kill themselves. Sometimes a person writes a book and they grow further and they become more inspiring. What happens after you write a book such as this? Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, folks, and thank you so much for all those great comments you got on the Sam Lesante Show, and also constructive comments. Sometimes you may have some great ideas, folks, or that people wrote books, like the current person I'm interviewing today wrote this book, The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life. Email me. Let me know what the book's about, because I always like to, I find it inspiring to bring people on who write books, because there's reasons why they wrote them. So the book here, The Journey, again, remember we're going on a journey. We're not looking for a destination. The first 3 chapters, the journey begins, the journey continues, our journey never ends. Now, we get to, you've now found a new love in your life, okay, and 3 more chapters develop.
Yes.
God plays a role in our journey. Scars run deep in the journey, and the immortal journey. Touch on those 3 chapters for me.
Okay, like you said, they were after my divorce, after I dealt with heartbreak and loss in my life, and coming into a new love and a new experience and a new relationship. And I wanted to touch on the fact that lots of people go through what I went through. You know, that they've had their heart broken, and they're trying to say, can I trust someone again with my heart? You know, I've been burned before. Can I really trust someone again? And it took me a while to resolve that within my personal life, and you know, I tried to express that through the character in the book, you know, in those chapters that you mentioned. But I think it's a healing process. It's not instantaneous, but I'm very happy right now. You know, Heather and myself are looking forward to our wedding, and you know, I was able to trust someone again, and I'm happy. I didn't want to just live a life of seclusion.
So that's one of you were writing the book as you're dating Heather.
Right.
Scars run deep in the journey. Just touch on that chapter a little bit.
The main part of it was we can have physical scars. You know, we have an injury and a scar, and we can see how it heals, and our body tries to heal itself. But when we're talking about matters of the heart, the scars run deep in the heart. And it's not a visible scar. you can't go around and look at people and say, oh, that person has had their heart broken, that person has their heart broken. It's not a visible scar, but it's there. And it's something that we have to address as we move forward and in order to trust other people in our lives. But it can be done. People have gotten their heart broken, but then develop really wonderful relationships and with their soulmate, and they're happy forever. So,
with the scars running deep, you find that in many, as we go through life, there are things that suck your energy out of your life, okay, particularly when it comes to personal matters, if it's a friend, if it's a family member or whatever, and you find why, when you had such a great family relationship with certain family members, or why you had such a good friendship with certain people, what happened that it deteriorates it? And then, you don't talk to your sister, you don't talk to your brother, you don't talk to your cousin, you don't talk to the relatives. They're the bad side, this is the good side, this friend is a bum. And so you wonder, when we go through that journey, okay, and we go through those bumps in life, how do we adjust to that? Because really, we're only here for a little bit of time.
Absolutely.
Okay. Does the book relate to any of that?
Absolutely. There's themes throughout the book that everything in life happens for a reason. Even the bad things that happen to us, they happen for a reason. Some people come into and out of our lives for a reason. Some people stick around. Some people we may have an estranged relationship with, but then we could reconnect with them. So that's just part of our journey through life.
And then the immortal journey. What is that?
The immortal journey, that chapter was really based on my experience as a parent. I have a 9-year-old son, Eddie, who I love, and he's one of my main reasons
in fact, he's
throughout
on
life.
The cover, folks. He's on the cover of the book.
And he is on the cover of the book.
Yeah.
So the immortal journey was really, okay, now we're parents and we have kids, and at some point our parents were kids, and it just keeps going from generation to generation, and the journey keeps continuing.
It's interesting, at Mass, Father Lambert, who is the pastor of St. John Bosco, he delivers great sermons, as well as many priests and ministers do and rabbis do, but he said something from Mark's Gospel talking about sin versus demons. And he mentioned demons. Instead of looking at sin, think of them as demons. And in our life, we have demons, all right? And how do we address those demons that continue to suck the energy out of our lives and the happiness that we can share with one another, okay? And I thought it was such a fabulous sermon, because what it says, wow, you look at sin, okay. But then he says, let's separate that and put demons in there, okay? And when we go to a journey, this guy had demons, okay, and was able to resolve them.
Right.
Correct? So tell me why, Dr. Bednarz, I should buy The Journey to Discover the Meaning of Life.
I think it's an inspirational story. It's a great experience to read. You could really get involved in the characters. I think, like you said, you could just start reading, and it's just an escape from your own life. But I think it's something positive and a positive message in the end. And I think people really enjoy it.
They're going to feel good after they read this book.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And believe me, folks, you're going to feel good after you read this book. I mean that sincerely. The Journey.tapeauthor.com. Now, on a personal note, folks, Eddie is my nephew. Okay, and I'm very proud of him. He learned everything from me. All kidding aside, he is my nephew, and we're so proud of what he has accomplished in his life. He has a sister, Selena, and she has 2 children. Eddie has 1, and we're very happy with what he's done. But putting that aside, I think this book is great. Get it. We'll see you next time.